A couple of weeks ago, when we heard from Kate, she titled what she was going to say, which I don't often hear, and I thought, if I have a title this week, it's I Want More, or Do I? There's something I wanted to read that's not from the church, that has a spiritual nature anyway. Some of you know that I'm a member of Al-Anon, have been for a couple of years, which is a companion program to Alcoholics Anonymous. We have a lot of readings, a lot of literature. I ran across this one recently, and it seemed to speak to part of what I'm saying today. I'm going to read you part of this. One of the oddest things I learned in recovery was to develop tolerance and even desire for feeling good. At first, I didn't connect much with other people. I didn't let anything approximating intimacy occur. Later, I noticed a paradox. When someone accepted or cared for me, I felt pleasure and pain. I was perplexed. Why would I feel pain at the same time as happiness? I asked an Al-Anon friend about this. She wondered if experiencing the good feelings I yearned for as a child might stir up some pain. She said the receiving might, for a short time, bring up the not receiving. So I've been thinking about that and noticing the times in my life where more came. I wasn't necessarily happy about it. Because two things happen, or can happen with that. One, it can bring up the feelings of, gee, what about other things that I don't have? The other thing can happen, though, is something that I heard Kate say a couple weeks ago about miracles. Do I really want them? Because if they show up, I might have to do something. I was thinking about an event that happened when I was up in Oregon, still living in Oregon. So I moved down here from Eugene. There was a synagogue in town. I don't know if there's just one or not, but I know this one night, there was a drive-by shooting in Eugene, of all places. I don't think anyone was there when it happened, and I don't think any great damage occurred, but there's bullet holes in the wall. And there was an outpouring from the community to come and be supportive, to say, we're on your side. You're not here alone. Now, out of a city that size, the crowd that was there was a pretty small percentage, but still, 200 or 300 people looked pretty impressive. And I remember going to that and thinking, aren't I just special? I'm here being supportive and wonderful. Now, I may not have thought those exact words, but somewhere in me, that was the feeling. And I have a funny feeling that a lot of people may have had something similar going on. But then this woman got up to speak. And I knew this woman. She was a pastor who often traded off with the pastor of the church I was going to. And anytime she came to speak, I loved listening to her give sermons, and I hated it at the same time because I always go up to her later and say, thank you so much. Now I have to think about that. Because she had a way of getting right to the heart of the matter in just a few words. So she got up. I don't remember what else she said, but she got up in front of this crowd who was there to be supportive of our Jewish brothers and sisters and thinking we're doing a good thing. And she got there and she said, so, you here for the wedding or the marriage? And at that moment, all those feelings of aren't I special were gone. I thought there's way more to this than just showing up and thinking I'm doing something right, good. That's part of what happens when we get more. Maybe I have to do something. When I was in my 20s, I was pretty rudderless. I had no idea what I was doing. I went from job to job, relationship to relationship, and I had no real direction. And I couldn't really decide what I wanted to do in my life. But I had this odd feeling that at some point later in my life, that purpose was going to present itself. And I hate to admit that, but the age I envisioned is the age I am now. Please don't hold me to that. I was having a conversation with my sister about a year ago, feeling frustrated with the way my life is going and not going, and not feeling like I'm not really know what I'm doing. And I said, I'm tired of being an adult. And she said, tough. Okay, that's actually a paraphrase of what she said, but there was a sense in me that I wasn't ready. About 10 years ago, I got on an airplane and went to China to meet my future ex-wife. And on that airplane, it was the first time I've ever been on an airplane, heading somewhere out of the Pacific, heading for Taiwan for the first stop. I'm sitting in the airplane thinking, shouldn't there be an adult alone on this trip? I just wasn't sure that I could handle my own life. I wanted somebody to tell me what to do. In a reading today, one of our readings, we talked about Jesus basically being back in his hometown. And people saying, who in the world does he think he is? We know this guy. Our kids played soccer together. Okay, maybe not, but they knew him, or thought they did. And they couldn't accept who he said he was and what he was trying to tell them. It's where we get the phrase that a prophet is not without honor, save in his own country. And I would change that just a little bit to say a person is not without worth except in their own mind. We often see things in others we refuse to see in ourselves. When we read from Elijah, now, if you go back just a little bit from that story and see what was going on, something truly extraordinary had just happened. Now, this is in the days when Ahab was king, Jezebel was queen. Elijah had basically challenged the prophets of Baal. Say, bring your sacrifice, I'll bring my sacrifice, let's see which one gets accepted. And theirs wasn't. Nothing happened. He doused his whole, drenched his whole, the sacrifice, the wood underneath it, everything with water, and yet God brought down fire and consumed the whole thing. That's a pretty extraordinary experience. Talk about your miracles. And just a short time later, he's hiding in a cave, fearing for his life. What happened? Well, part of what happened is that having done that, and then he had a lot of these prophets killed, so that didn't make Jezebel very happy. She was out for blood from him, and he knew that. But he somehow couldn't hang on to the idea of that one miracle. And it's like, hey, if that's going to happen, you're probably going to be okay. But I wondered, too, in reading that, if maybe something else might not have happened. That when that miracle occurred, maybe he thought, that's it, we're done. I've accomplished my goals, we're good. And they discovered, no, we're not. Because they're still trying to get me. And so he's holed up in a cave saying, God, I can't do this. I can't do this. Take my life, I'm done. I'm no better than anybody else I've ever known, my ancestors, anyone. I don't belong here. Just take me home. And to be honest, I've had that feeling. I've been there. When I thought, I can't do this. I can't do this life. I don't know how to. I'm not good enough. But like Elijah, maybe not quite so dramatically, God keeps saying to me, nuh-uh. I am not done with you yet, fella. So, you're stuck with me. So often what happens is when things are going well, it's easy to believe. It's easy to have faith. It's easy to believe we're doing the right thing. There's a particular psalm that speaks to a lot of these things. I'm just going to read you a little part of it. This is Psalm 30, verse 6. When I felt secure, I said, I will never be shaken. Oh Lord, when you favored me, you made my mountain stand firm. That's pretty confident. Next two lines. But when you hid your face, I was dismayed. There are so many stories in the Bible about people who kind of lose faith in the middle of something. And I think to some extent that's what happened to Elijah. But the fact is, if you look through some of the great names in the Bible, we think of them as being these amazing people who did amazing things, and they really weren't. Amazing things happened, but they were just a lot like us. Probably a lot of you have seen the movie The Ten Commandments, with Charlton Heston being the stalwart, brave, and upright hero. That's not who Moses was. When God called Moses to do what he wanted him to do, Moses said, "Are you mental? Me? No. You got the wrong guy." Okay, he didn't say exactly. He said, "You got the wrong guy. I can't do that. I'm no leader. I can't speak. I cannot get up in front of people and do that sort of thing. That's not me." And God says, "I've chosen you." He said, "I'll give you Aaron to help. He can be your spokesperson, but you're doing this. You are to be the leader of my people." And that's not an uncommon reaction. An awful lot of characters in the Bible said, no, please, no. The fact is, God does not call the qualified. He qualifies the call. He makes it possible. If he has a plan for you, he makes it possible for that plan to happen. In the programs that I'm in, I've heard a phrase. I've heard it over and over and over. It's a real simple one. It says, "I'm not good enough." Said it myself, heard other people say it. There's two reasons for that. One is that we've been told throughout our lives. We've been told, no, you're not that kind of person. You're not good enough. Usually happens really early on in life. And we're used to it. There's a point where pain and unhappiness become comfortable because we understand it. We're used to it. We're not willing to step away from it. The other thing that happens is it becomes an excuse. And I say, you know what? Don't expect much from me because I'm not that good. And believe me, I know that feeling. When I get asked to do things sometimes here in the church, I'm saying, I'm afraid I'll screw up. I'm afraid I'll let you down. I'm afraid I won't get it right. Someday, somehow, somewhere, I'm going to get it wrong. And you know what? I will. I will get it wrong. But that doesn't really matter. But it becomes an excuse to not try, to stay back in that place. And we forget, again, from the gospel reading, that we have a living bread that keeps us going. Going back to when Elijah was in that cave, he said, "I'm done. I can't do it." God said, "No. Get up, eat. We got things for you to do. Get up, eat, drink, and go." The fact is, he'll do that for all of us. Because we're never asked to do something we're not capable of. It may seem like it. But the fact is, we are usually given the means, whatever that thing is. One of the things that happened for me, sitting in this church, and sitting in the other church that I go to, sitting in the rooms of my 12-step program, there was a phrase that went through my head over and over and over and over. And that phrase was, "I don't get it." I would see people, other people in those rooms who seemed to get it. They were smiling. They were happy. They knew the talk. they were moving forward in some way. They seemed to fit where they were, and I didn't feel that way. And I said, I don't get it. It's like they're doing a magic trick that I couldn't figure out. And I said that for months. I don't get it. Till one day, I realized I was saying it wrong. I had to change 2 letters in that sentence. It became a whole lot more accurate. And I don't get it became I won't let it. I realized how much I was resisting because I didn't want to be disappointed again. But then realizing at some point that what are my options? Stay stuck or take a chance? We are told that we are made in God's image. Now, I know a lot of people who think that means that God has fingers and toes. There's these old white men in a white beard sitting on a throne somewhere. Now, I don't deny that God could take any form he wants, but I kind of don't think that's his natural form, as it were. Because quite frankly, as amazing as our bodies are, what we do and we can do, that seems like a small thing for God to do. I don't think that image is physical. I think that image is what we are created on the inside. We are created to be in communion with the author of the universe. That's something way more than a physical body. And I look around in this room and I see way more than you know. Every single one of you. There's far more to you than you know. Because that's the way God made us. But we refuse to see that in ourselves. There's a saying in 12-step programs that when you blame and you point your finger at somebody, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you. And what I have to remember is when I say there's more to you than you know, and I say there's more to you than you know, same thing. So I got 3 pointing back at me. There are times I can see in other people, I don't know what it is. I can't say, oh, this is what you need to do, Kate. I don't know. This is who you need to be, Ted. I don't know. This is where you need to go, Carolyn. I don't know. But I see a spark in others. I can't tell you what that is. I just know I see it. But it requires a change. And change is an inside job. Something that God gives us from the inside out. So do I want more? Yeah. But I have to be careful about what things I want. Material things are nice, but they don't really matter that much. I'll tell you what I want. I want more knowledge and confidence of that knowledge of God's will for me. I want more experience of God's presence in my life. I want more of friendships that ease the burdens and lighten them and increase the joy. That's what I want more of. But I have to be willing to accept that if I receive more, more is going to be expected of me. It's not a free ride. And yet, we all know, we are told that what we receive here is a gift. It's not something we earned. It's something that's freely given with no strings attached. Even so, there is a need for you to take that gift and share it, whatever that may be. There's the obvious gift of what God does for us, that what he tells us is possible. That gift is easy to share. Each one of us, though, has other gifts that we can share. So I want more. Yeah, I really do. I also know that those things will come in God's time, not mine. And I have to be willing to deal with what will be expected when those things happen. And so far, it hasn't been a burden. Because that's the fear. You don't want me to do something I want to do. I am not going to go to Afghanistan and be a missionary. I wasn't asking you to. We're asked to do what we're good at. That's the more that I want, and the more that each one of us should be asking. And to see that light in every person I meet. To see all of you through God's eyes. Because I know when I say I see more, that there's more to you than you know, it's not my eyes seeing that. That's God telling me that. There's something more that even you don't know. And it's up to each of us to discover what that something is. All I can say is I know that this is what God wants for us. There are responsibilities, there are duties, there are needs. But before any of that is a recognition and acceptance of the gifts that he so willingly gives us. And to revel in that, to enjoy that, and to be who we actually are, as God meant us to be. Praise be to God.